the supernova of 1006 AD, which inspired Speaking in Tongues, Voynich Manuscript, by Thomas O'Neill, April 20th, 2026. Over the years, and it has been 17 now since I first saw and discussed the Voynich Manuscript, I have had my theories. At times, I thought it was gibberish, and others a code for an actual language that was everyday speech. MS-408, the document name for the Voynich Manuscript, does have its structure of prefixes and suffixes, yet it retains a low entropy for a language. That means it is unusual that more often words repeat themselves than a normal language. Many attempts have been made to gain meaning over the time it has been published since 1005-1006. What happened in April 30th, 1006 was a rather large illuminated supernova. It is my theory about the Voynich Manuscript. Ignoring the carbon dating, I believe this inspired this document of Speaking in Tongues. Carbon dating is not a bulletproof science. I don't trust the carbon dating of the Voynich Manuscript. It is possible maybe it is a historical document, but my feeling is the document is too personal and was written at the time. What I have here are all the posts from the site Voynich Ninja about my theory. They are different and concise with information, leads, and secrets of the author of the Voynich Manuscript. If you are interested in the world's most mysterious document, while you read this, you can see it and interact while you are reading along. My theory where the rules are loose and wild, these types of words would appear only in a constructed language for a glossolalia. So just looking at these words brings up a glossolalia. What is interesting is the number 8 corresponds to N, meaning that the frequency hit is the same for the glyph the number 8, D in Eva, and N in Latin. So simply substituting Latin for Eva, then you can pronounce the word that was a glossolalia dictionary term. Latin used October for 8. I think the 8 was important because it was matching frequencies of highest to lowest from both Voynich glyphs and Latin letters to show you the language to use. N happens to be the 8th highest Latin letter pointing to Latin. So let's try Dan. It would be pronounced octesser when spoken in tongues. So why did I not use N as in Nesser? Not only does octesser sound like professor and it's in Latin, it has 3 syllables. 8 happens to be about the same frequency area as N in Latin. I believe it pointing as a straight across substitution all along, and even though the words don't make sense, it's because it's a glossolalia. There is also one small word in Latin, say in folio 2v, and it means apart from. It could be apart from the language. I appreciate your attention on this matter. Day in octesser. I found 2 occurrences of dio, means God in Latin in folio 79v with the cross. The core in a straight substitution would be dio, however the pronunciation is different. I use 4 for Q, so Corchety would be quat 2 or eo a October novum. If you are interested in my theory, I have a website where you can input Eva and output glossolalia. Here is a link for Eva. I'm not sure of the statistics if the entropy would rank higher toward a language or not compared to Voynich than the substituted glossolalia. Here is my website, https://voynichglossolalia.greatsite.net/ you can put in multiple words. Here is the first paragraph of folio 1 are the way they spoke 600 years ago for MS-408. V novem like eo epicer Mike Myanovem pub novemlab Mykocta novembianovem Leo io novum eleuo epicer mioi thoocto novmeso molnovem io novum lisser miocto pianovem pub octioiser novum octiser ipianovem ipiub oisipnovem p eo octoiser ipicer io iler octoisictiso novum pesser geo vesser novum octoois novum. Just another post. I made an observation of the star folio F68 R1. The star Oyner in tongues sounds like Israel. Some of the medieval people thought of stars were like angels. Anyway, here is the decoded star in tongues. Theologians and common people linked stars to angels in medieval times. Oyner, a YISS, in RERO, Oyner Israel. One other idea about speaking in tongues. There's the whole repeat words issue, and yes, that's in the Voynich. The way I decoded it has that repeat vibe too. So look at this for instance. If you decode some of Voynich with my website to tongues, you will hear the repeat vibe. When you read it, dy diocio, y novum diocio, y novum diocio, y novem octonovem octonovem octonovem. Quote, because they are sadly uneducated and uncatechized on the matter, and have mistaken the occultic practice of incantation/ululation with the gift of tongues, in the New Testament, by repeating the same 5 to 13 syllables multiple times, especially, but not necessarily, with gradually increasing speed, volume, and intensity and working to a climax. One induces an altered state of consciousness, and often autohysteria.it is in fact a practice condemned in Scripture, in both the Old Testament and the New. Apostolic tongues, by contrast, sounds like a language, with a discernible grammar, vocabulary, morphology, and syntax, and in fact often is an actual other human language that the speaker has no knowledge of. I was accompanying a friend on a mission trip in Eastern Europe 25 years ago, and at a small town in southeast Poland the host asked me to preach at a village gathering with the host translating. 3 lines into the sermon, though I speak not a word of Polish, I broke into perfect native Polish, and not the kind you'd learn in school, but this town's obscure dialect and accent. At least that's what they all told me. All I know is I was trying to speak in English, but all the words kept coming out funny. Say is just above the decoded LAO for core. The abbreviation for Latin is L, and AIO means to tell and relate. Yet, say states this is apart from Latin, yet AIO to tell and relate the meaning may be apart. This is very interesting for a glossolalia. There are remote Latin words that are rare, but for the most part it reads like tongues. Say. Core LAO okay, so I believe I know what's going with say. It means apart from. It's in F2V and MS 408. There is 5 instances of the word AIO in Folio 2V that's supposed to be for tongues, but the word is AIO, means to tell or relate. So we are dealing with a glossolalia, and we are telling and relating, but the meaning is apart from. Tests indicate that glossolalia's rank are lower on entropy tests for language. So I decided, since I can gain access to my glossolalia of words through my site from EVA, to run an entropy test for language. The test was done on half of Folio 58R, and it rated 3.69596. While English ranks a 4.5. Lower entropy means the next word is easier to predict. This seems about right. In a glossolalia, there is much repetition going on. I have made a breakthrough, and when you are done reading this, emotions will run high. I feel this post may change your perception, either to totally scoff at this, or you will have intrigue. The evidence is not a winding road. One evidentiary state of facts opens up a new look at this book. Yes, words, coding, imagery, and an era all play a part. My choice of Latin was for 3 reasons. The main reason was the amount of core glyphs from Voynich was key. The core Voynich glyphs comprise about 20 that are used. Latin uses 24 on average, yet the least often are rare, so I'm using a straight across 2020 for glyphs to letters. Latin would be the source language of the person recording tongues, but of course no sensible words, only rarely. They would repeat, and when recording the words to dictionary to later write into a manuscript, the structure of a constructed language that's loose for rules could be understood for low entropy. The glyph script was to show off an angelic feel for the one who knew the language that underlined the script of glyphs. The other reason I'm using a Latin frequency list is this text is what I believe the author of the dictionary base tongue words came from. The exception is with 4, 8, and 9. He may have been autistic and used them as shorthand in the dictionary. He then transferred the numbers over into the made-up script, which he memorized to read in front of priests. Maybe. Speculation, as always in this study. I believe the author could read the Voynich. Anyone could memorize a Latin-based system applied to a foreign-based glyph system and utter the words even if they did not make sense. My guess, he approached the priests at churches, maybe saying he wrote down speaking in tongues, and this was the angelic text. Third reason is I found 2 Latin words, and one in the Voynich margin and folio. On F2V, I found say means apart from in Latin. I already stated that LAIO was L apart from AIO, and it was L was abbreviated for Latin. That AIO meant to tell and relate, yet no meaning. As say goes, meaning apart from. And I found MV on F66, or means 1005 in Latin in the margin, where there's a little crumb of food next to it. My translation found MVIO in tongues for Evishkforskfor is October 1006, and this is logic. Quote, 3. The month abbreviation, October 1006 old ledger entries, and O after a year would indicate the month of October, Octoberus. 1. MVI equals 1006. 2. O equals October. 3. Interpretation. October 1006. I looked this up. In around October of 1006. Quote, 1. The supernova of 1006. Throughout the year, including the autumn, the brightest supernova ever recorded, SN 1006, was visible in the skies, having appeared in May in the constellation Lupus. It was so bright that it was described by observers across Europe, China, Japan, and Egypt, and it remained visible for months. Quote, the aspect of this rock art panel that caught my attention was the figure at upper left, which resembles other Hohokam glyphs thought to represent scorpions. It is an oriented figure facing right with what appear to be keely, hinged pincer-like claws, legs, and a tail. These are creatures with which the desert-dwelling Hohokam would have been very familiar. The juxtaposition of figures that could plausibly be interpreted as a scorpion and bright sky object, in their relative positions, immediately reminded me of the positions of the classical constellation Scorpius and the bright supernova recorded by European and Chinese astronomers that first appeared in the night sky in the early hours of May 1, 1006 CE. The object would have been visible from the location of the petroglyph, rising some 20 degrees above the southern horizon just before midnight. With a peak visual brightness of magnitude 7.5, it outshone every other object in the night sky. For the inhabitants of the area, it would have been an unforgettable sight. This plant of folio 25V could be a green supernova with a dragon exhaling the foliage. This leads up to the word I'm showing you, which could move the whole date of the MS408. If you carefully look at F25V, it does look like an exploding star, and a dragon would be breathing fire. Sh4 MVI represents the year 1006, an October month in Latin of the supernova. I don't doubt that's when the Voynich was created. Yet there have been mistakes in carbon dating. There is a very big star theme in the Voynich besides the herbal and a supernova. The one they spoke of for 1006 could have stoked speaking in tongues. I don't think I'm pushing the speculation too far. The evidence is in the text. There is only one occurrence of MVIO, so excluding the tongues, and pushing a year from logic and imagery as well. There is some religious themes in the Voynich, a cross and a dove. The manuscript does push the star theme quite a bit. I think the closest images to a star being a supernova in MS408 are F67R1, F67V1, and F68V1. There could be meaning here in this one instance. The MV in the margin indicates a number 1005. It could be a date maybe. Wikipedia. Key details regarding the appearance of SN 1006. Color changes. Arab scholar accounts indicate the star's color shifted as it faded, starting as a faint greenish yellow before becoming whiter. /quote. I ended the post, but I have further evidence from the MS408. The supernova was in the Lupus Scorpius area 1006. Folio 67V2 shows a sun, a star rising out of a pipe, and a constellation in the shape of a J known as Scorpius. The middle is green, could be supernova. Just view the image I brought in. What are your views on this? Quote, yes, the Lupus constellation features a distinct triangle-shaped asterism within its boundary, which is often used to mark the head of the wolf. The triangle shape. The head of Lupus is defined by a triangle of stars, specifically Eta Lupi, Theta Lupi, and Chi Lupi. Location. Lupus is a southern hemisphere constellation, bordered by Scorpius, the Scorpion, and Centaurus. What is very symbolic about F25V is the green dragon expelling or exhaling the greenest plant of the Voynich, like an exploding star in which MVI happens to be in the text. F70R2 also looks like it could be a supernova. Quote, some historical accounts suggest the 1006 supernova appeared with a greenish yellow or pale blue tint as it changed colors during its months-long visibility. While Chinese observers often described it as yellow and extremely brilliant, other records indicate it was a dazzling, shifting color. Attached files. Images. This is extremely bold to you, the reader. I cannot deny the code, the rare words in Latin in the margin, the identical imagery for the theme of a supernova in 1006, and the history. This conlang, speaking in tongues 1-to-1 substitution, has given the Voynich somewhat a meaning and time that I think cannot be refuted. Carina is the hull of the ship. I found a rare Latin word in folio 25V, with my code skier, meaning ship's hull. 1. Of a ship, a hulled hull. 2. A small ship, boat. 3. Quote, yes, the constellation Carina contains a prominent, roughly square-shaped asterism. 4. This word came out of the same folio 25V where MVI came from. Point 4. Quote, yes, the Carina constellation represents the keel, or hull, of the ship Argo Novice. Now looking at the constellation positions and the folio 67V2, what are the odds of Latin code words in F25V for ship's hull Carina and MVI SuperNova pointing to F67V2? I believe I have a partial solution for the Voynich manuscript. In some medieval manuscripts, constellations are represented scientifically, using dots connected by lines, rather than the classical animal and human figures that a good example is a zodiac wheel in MSBSB CLM 28229, Speyer on the Rhine, Germany, 14th century. The map below with the sun and moon rising and setting gives the meaning you could see the supernova day and night. Quote, yes, you can see the constellation Scorpius in October, but only for a very short time just after sunset, low on the southwestern horizon. It is a summer constellation that departs the sky by mid-September in the northern hemisphere, but the bright, red heart star Antares can still be spotted in early October. Let's assume I'm right, and the author was around during the supernova of 1006. He worked on it from 1005 to day in Occasus or October of 1006. This event would contribute to speaking in tongues because of the night sky brightness of the supernova. The people may have thought the cosmic signs were a prelude to God's wrath. One other tidbit of info Eva Chan is air means air and sky listed 11 times by itself the MS408. The folio just before where I found Aleo and MBAO has one hit of air. I have a site where you can put in Latin words and it outputs eva to check.https://Latin eva.great site. Net what could be additional evidence, and it would be the beginning of the stirrup usage for the handheld crossbow. You have to admit that crossbow looks antiquated. Now I don't want to sound disgusting, but the guy has a grin and his target is a little suggestive. I digress. The crossbow in F73V is extremely primitive and suggests 11th century. https://Latin eva.greatsite.net/ there is a stirrup design with the round hooks on the spanning in F73V. Quote, the inclusion of a stirrup on the front of a crossbow to aid in spanning, drawing. The bow did not become a standard, ubiquitous feature until later in the Middle Ages, but its early, rare appearance in the 11th century is supported by emerging evidence. Early archaeological evidence. While common, widespread use of the stirrup occurs around the turn of the 12th and 13th centuries. The earliest known European crossbow remains, which include stirrups, have been dated to the 11th century. Notably from findings at Lake Paladru. Wikipedia +1 the rare 11th century usage. While crossbows were present, e.g., at the Battle of Hastings in 1066, the stirrup was not universal. Early crossbowmen frequently held the bow down using their feet directly on the prod itself, a less efficient method that could damage the bow. www.akava.akamu.akava.com +1 function of early stirrups. The 11th century stirrup allowed the user to put their foot through a metal ring on the front, enabling them to use their strong back and leg muscles to draw the string, often while using a belt hooked. Britannica +1 transition period. The 11th century marked a transition in European weaponry. The crossbow was reintroduced/gained popularity after centuries of absence, 10th century, but it was still developing the specialized metal stirrups and complex drawing devices that became standard in the 13th and 14th centuries. Wikipedia. There is no doubt in my mind now, because I have the evidence. It is a glossolalia like I propose, an angelic script with underlying Latin source code. There are few rare Latin words and some Latin margin words which enabled the breakthrough. I believe the supernova set off something with people witnessing in tongues, and this was major during the supernova of 1006. Many people here, including Bax, believe, including myself, that folio 68 are 3 retains Pleiades. That folio is a planisphere of some constellations during April 30th, 1006 when the supernova went off. The constellation are at 9:30 position W Taurus and Pleiades. At the southwest 7 position are Puppis Argo Novis, Scorpius, Lupus, but crux you have to be further south than Venice to observe it that time of year. At the 1 position in E, you have Ursa Minor and Draco. At East position for 330, you have Boötes, Virgo, and Hydra. Never mind the number, I put in the SW, they could be wrong. Those constellations were in SW, just at different times. Puppis is the only one at the same time as NW, NE, and SE. The author/artist was trying his best to convey the constellations of SN 1006 that I believe in this post. The evidence points to a supernova of 1006 for MS 408, and that it is a constructed language about speaking in tongues with some rare Latin words. I don't believe the carbon data to be accurate, unless the author researched the subject really well. That could be possible if he had access to a great library. Why I doubt the carbon dating. The margins of Latin MV and say with my code found MVIO, and the whole glossolalia idea, this would be of that time. This is circa 1005-1006 that you can download Stellarium here to view for yourself. https://stellarium.org/. SN 1006 appeared in a remote part of the sky. It is known that 1006 was off the galactic plane and remote. I used my cipher and found the Latin word auio means out of the way, remote, trackless, untrodden. The word aujo was found in F68R3 on the opposite end of the planisphere where the supernova 1006 was found. Quote, yes, SN 1006 was located in a relatively remote or isolated part of the sky, far from the dense, dust-filled plane of the Milky Way galaxy. Specifically, it occurred in the constellation Lupus, roughly 14 degrees off the galactic plane, which allowed its light to reach Earth, unobstructed, resulting in the brightest observed supernova in human history, brighter than Venus. Facebook +3. It's on the ridge chair. This site converts EVA to tongues, and sometimes a Latin word. https://Voynich glossolalia, a great site. Net/this site converts Latin words to EVA. https://Latin eva.greatsite.net. Thanks for the reply. My cipher is a custom EVA to Latin from highest to lowest frequency, settings matching glyph to letter. Of course, EVA represents a glyph. I'm counting the CH as one letter, A, in my cipher, and it has been telling. I'm not speaking in tongues. Yes, if you put in EVA D, the Latin output will be octo, its tongues. Some rare words come through as Latin, and they have been key to information about findings. Following up on F68R3, I decided to check on the location of Rome with Stellarium. There may be confusion, but west is to the right and east is to the left. The southwest constellations don't line up all at the same time, just one Puppis 4, Argo Novis. When I move the time and stay on the 30th, Scorpius and Lupus come into the southwest together. Crux is to far south. Since we are comparing to F68R3, at the center is what looks like a moon, not a sun, which indicated night. And the diagrams are at night. F68R2 shows a moon to the north, and the face looks the same as the moon in F68R3. About quatuor, octo, and novum. This is 4, 8, and 9 respectively. They appear in MS 408. Why it's in tongues, and it's special. April is the 4th month, and it's when the supernova of 1006 occurred. It faded after 3 months in August/September. August is the 8th/9th months, and it was gone only pulses. Day in is name Octoiser, so it could double for Octoberus, the date on MVIO in the earlier post here. And the SN 1006 that faded was gone in the southwest. Lupus was just on a hair line in the SW from Venice, Italy, and it would have faded almost entirely in Octoberus. Then the nova reappeared in Novemberus, so there goes the sounding like NOVM.SOI interpreted tongues. Here is an example of tongues, and it's short. My pronunciation may be terrible. It's a prayer in speech where any syllable that leaves your vocal cords is a sign of devotion. That's speaking in tongues. This could be the author's own words that he recorded with Latin. After he wrote down the words in Latin, he assigned the glyphs to it as a dictionary. Then he memorized the glyphs as Latin sounds and wrote out the MS 408. Maybe he did not have any help by the looks of the pictures. Courier AB is him. Or he had help. That's a tough answer, although the consensus says multiple scribes that I have had other theories and I discounted them, yet there is too much that has been connected here. I believe the small amount of effort to show corrections for this text is a facade, to make you think the language behind it is 100%. The author had much going on with woman. I believe he was male. I'm a man, and I can see the misogyny in the MS-408. The crossbow man pointing his bolt at her vagina, naked ladies, tying up woman, and woman being eaten by fish, although that could be a man. Maybe in a way this tongue business was private but a confession, and the supernova prompted this outpouring, speculation. He had his fetishes and was brilliant if you ask me. He had an omen on his back, AUI. Omen. The reason it is hidden is the man wanted to get it out of his system, his thoughts in tongues with God. The supernova spurred on his soul. He did leave little trails of morsels like MV, say MV Joe, and some other Latin words I have found in the text with this unique glossolalia substitution cipher 1 to 1. God is actually in the MS-408 as DIO for door, which is in tongues as octoio, listed 73 times as door for Eva. Octo is D for Eva. This fits for low entropy and why no one has decoded it or put a language to it. For the first time in 17 years with these discoveries, the doubting has diminished to 0.01%. I feel I have done it. What I doubt is a guy gathered this from a library. I was going to post this in the Chinese theory, but hey, it's my theory, right? So here it is. This tongue cipher has some hits with meaning. It found ALE with the YNG plant for folio 38, Aroli. The plant depicts the YNG symbol missing the yang. Yang with medicine, I believe this the fist hit. Does anyone want me to really record some more of me speaking in tongues from MS-408? Yeli and YNG mean nurturing, healing, to feed, nourish, support, sustain, maintain figuratively, to nourish, cherish, promote, increase, strengthen. Quote, context. It is often used to describe nourishing the body, mind, spirit, or community. In the context of traditional Chinese medicine, yang sheng, as defined on ECOS acupuncture, also focuses on nourishing life, which involves nurturing physical and mental well-being. Acupuncture. Looking at what should be November in astrology of MS-408 with the lizard according to Elias Schwertfeger, that I did a double take, and the author is hiding novum right in front of us with an over-horizontal macron that's not a B and AR, and E is missing. This looks strange. I use novum for my Eva. Why? It's in the speech in tongues from the cipher. Look at what should be November. It's a short novum. Why? For novum, check it out in my cipher. https://voynich-glossolalia.greatsite.net. Quote, scribal abbreviation, overline in medieval manuscripts and older handwriting, such as German current schrift. A horizontal bar over a consonant like N or M, e.g., was used to indicate that the letter was doubled or to indicate a missing N or M. While we are on the topic novum for number, I believe you're in my imagination that the adjective for nova, which is novum, sounds just like novum. This occurs for novum 16,602 in MS-408, and it is the second most common glyph in the Voynich Manuscript. This for speaking in tongues was like a religious experience for the author. Ali ibn Ridwan was at Cairo when he recorded the fading of SuperNova 1006. It slipped out of view in September, and that's when I believe the author, the MS-408, recorded the dark period in Choir 13 of the Voynich. Novum for the 9th month, that if you notice in Choir 13, 1 out of 20 folios there is only 1 star, and it's dark to be viewed in F82R. The strong parallels are with the sleeping woman who normally gleefully holds stars in their hands. There is a string on the star which trails off to a blue orb and a woman with blue hair. This tells me the supernova went dark. Here is the process 2 lines below the picture of the sleeping supernova in tongues from my cipher. What you will see in there is RIP, and that was used in Latin as requiescat in pace, singular, or requiescant in pace, plural, meaning may he/she/they rest in peace. If you wish to process tongues with my cipher, go here. I'm only using the output words now, and if you need to align as in text paragraphs for the list of words, go here. Lica octanovum quadrilooctanovem quattrorigit quattroripuocto egaugoctanovum quada orpec octanovum leq ipioctonovem quadoriocto octo equadorioctio auli sisic ilec eliso octanovum. Quote, at the time SN 1006 was first seen, it was reported by Ali ibn Ridwan to be in opposition to the sun, and so months later, sometime in September, it was no longer able to be seen due to its proximity to the sun. It reappeared in the dawn sky in November or December of 1006. The SN was visible in the night sky for a period of at least 3 years. Something else that is sign language from F82 are with the woman arms for letters. I used to try this some time ago, but from left to right, and the woman are signaling something, and now I understand it's from right to left. The last woman on the right is pointing to glyph, which I use Latin I in my cipher. The word is novi, and it's in the same word list as nova for definitions. However, it means knowledge. This was very interesting to me, because I'm noticing my cipher being acknowledged by MS408 itself. Quatuo RIP Novum. This is measurable and not a random indication within the Voynich Manuscript. It's deliberate. Quatuo RIP Novum, which is Cody again Cody. The 29 instances out of 89 for Cody, which rest in peace SuperNova, is 145% listed and has the greatest density than any other section. Choir 13, I feel, was created in September when the SuperNova faded away. The herbal section has a 30% density of Cody. I made a tremendous find for speaking in tongues, she. That's mu in Latin, means muttering. That's precisely what happens between words or during a glossolalia, speaking in tongues. She occurs 25 times in the Voynich Manuscript. She is munovim muttering nova/9. The occurrence is 283 times in the Voynich. Here is a picture of F70, R2, with she highlighted in yellow. Why this folio image? To me, it suggests a supernova. I think it's time for me to start paying attention more to the tongue of MS408. Arizona AMS Laboratory, a solid case for 1056 AD. I'm going to throw some dirt, or should I say a morsel or crumb, next to MV. Quote, the NSF Arizona AMS Laboratory at the University of Arizona has conducted radiocarbon dating on both the Shroud of Turin and the Voynich Manuscript, playing a crucial role in scientific investigations of both controversial artifacts. The Arizona AMS Laboratory radiocarbon dated the Shroud of Turin, which is 200 years off in a sample, and the Voynich, which is 60 years off in a sample. However, I'm claiming it to be 400 years off, so who is wrong and right? Maybe F68 is 200 years off according to René Zandbergen. This is not an exact science, folks. Quote, in 2010, statisticians Marco Riani and Anthony C. Atkinson wrote in a scientific paper that the statistical analysis of the raw dates obtained from the 3 laboratories for the radiocarbon test suggests the presence of contamination in some of the samples. They conclude that the effect is not large over the sampled region. Our estimate of the change is about 2 centuries. 49. In December 2010, Timothy Jull, a member of the original 1988 radiocarbon dating team and editor of the peer-reviewed journal Radiocarbon, co-authored an article in that journal with Rachel A. Freer Waters. They examined a portion of the radiocarbon sample that was left over from the section used by the University of Arizona in 1988 for the carbon dating exercise, and were assisted by the director of the Gloria F. Ross Center for Tapestry Studies. They viewed the fragment using a low magnification, 30 times, stereo microscope, as well as under high magnification, 320 times, viewed through both transmitted light and polarized light, and then with epifluorescence microscopy. They found only low levels of contamination by a few cotton fibers, and no evidence that the samples actually used for measurements in the C14 dating processes were dyed, treated, or otherwise manipulated. They concluded that the radiocarbon dating had been performed on a sample of the original shroud materia. Quote, the assumptions used to combine the results were clearly explained by René Zandbergen. A combined dating of the Voynich MS. The dating of each folio doesn't allow a very precise dating of the MS. The uncertainty in age for each folio is some 50-60 years, and in the case of folios 68, even spans 2 centuries due to the above-mentioned inversions of the calibration curve. The book production process is likely to have taken considerably less time than these 50-60 years. Under the assumptions that the MS was indeed created over a time span not exceeding, e.g., 10 years, it was not using parchment that was prepared many years ago. Each sheet provides a measurement or observation of the MS creation. Since they are likely to be from different animal hides, these are indeed independent observations. Combining these observations leads to a combined uncalibrated age of 1,435 plus or minus 26 years, 1 sigma. I thought I would go over MV again and see what I could make out from the two other words in Latin. N, MV, ES. Translation. See there, 1005, exists. The picture of the person holding their umbilicus F66, or which means navel or center, is what I want you to focus on. This word, the center. MV plays the central role of the whole manuscript, and it is the key in which everything falls into place. The cipher which relied on MV found MVI for 1006, which gave me the breakthrough. What is truly ironic, and the author of MS408 had no idea about evil Y, but it is T in Latin, which is novum in my cipher. That is a wonder. This will come as a surprise. I have found the author's full name, and I believe he was a Pisces. Mech was found there. His name is Leo Mech in folio 113R. Cartial Mech is abbreviated I surmise. Mech comes from Meko or Miko.y, a common derivative of the first name Domenico, meaning sacred to God. This is symbolic and a metaphor, and I don't think he is implying a saber-toothed tiger. It's Leo Mech saying he is speaking in tongues, and it's depicting a cat symbolic of Leo with its tongue sticking out in August. So circa 1005-6, and Leo Mech of Italy, author of MS408. So for the rest of the book, well, at least 20 more pages, I feel I need to add some of the MS408 author Leo Miko's tongue's words from Choir 20. F103R. Ali ibn Ridwan from Cairo recorded the supernova visible on April 30th, 1006 in the Northern Hemisphere. If you count the barrels with the ladies holding stars in MS408 for the 2 April astrology charts, you find them totaling to 30. The woman in the barrels with the stars in their hands symbolized the supernova coming out. Quote, SN 1006 was a supernova that is likely the brightest observed stellar event in recorded history, reaching an estimated minus 7.5 visual magnitude, 4, and exceeding roughly 16 times the brightness of Venus. Appearing between April 30th and May 1st, 1006, ambiguous, in the constellation of Lupus, this guest star was described by observers across China, Japan, modern-day Iraq, Egypt, and Europe, 2, 5, and was possibly recorded in North American petroglyphs. 6. Some reports state it was clearly visible in the daytime. Modern astronomers now consider its distance from Earth to be about 7,200 light-years or 2,200 parsecs. 3. Historic reports. Egyptian astrologer and astronomer Ali ibn Ridwan, writing in a commentary on Ptolemy's Tetrabibles, stated that the spectacle was a large circular body, 21 halves to 3 times as large as Venus. The sky was shining because of its light. The intensity of its light was a little more than a quarter that of moonlight, or perhaps than the light of the moon when 1/4 illuminated. 2. Like all other observers, Ali ibn Ridwan noted that the new star was low on the southern horizon. Some astrologers interpreted the event as a portent of plague and famine. Wikipedia. This should hit home for everyone here enjoying this theory. Lupus is a misnomer for the constellation that is a leopard, and it still had a triangle at its head. Hence the tongue's leopard in August. Quote, the key Arabic astronomical work of this era was the Book of Fixed Stars by Abu al-Hazan Abd al-Rahman al-Sufi, 903 to 986 AD, completed around 964 CE, which contained a listing of the Arabs' own star names. Muslim heritage, so the Arabic naming tradition that included al-Fad was active well before the 11th century. Quote, Lupus, the wolf, an idea for the figure said to be from the astrologer's erroneous translation of al-Fad, the Arabian title for this constellation, their leopard or panther. They made an error and renamed leopard to Lupus. The leopard constellation was around when author of MS408 Leo Miko in 1006 displayed the leopard with the tongue sticking out to signal the supernova to the south. To say this means speaking in tongues. Thanks for your attention. The evidence overweighs the carbon dating. However, like some who believe they cracked the Voynich, I leave that decision to the readers.